come to order, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the spring quarterly meeting of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. Appreciate everyone being here and giving your attention to what's going to take place this morning. First order of business is to call the roll, and I'll call on Ms. Carter to do so, please.
Mr. Cope?
Present.
Fisher? Secretary Hargett?
Here.
Ms. Hayes? Here. Dr. Haber? Here. Mr. Kinsey? Tobin?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Martin? Ms. Martin? Coach? Burton? Comptroller Wilson?
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Next, I'd like to take a moment to recognize a new member of our commission, Ms. Mentha Roach. Those of you who were here for the work session yesterday afternoon got an introduction to Ms. Roach. I'm going to ask her if she wouldn't mind to, again, just sort of introduce yourself and tell everybody where you're from.
I appreciate being here. I appreciate the confidence of the governor in my appointment. I am the president and CEO of the Knoxville Utilities Board. We are the distributor of electricity, natural gas, water, and we treat wastewater. So employment is a big deal for us, making sure that we have the skills we need to provide services to our customers. So it's an honor for me to be here and support this endeavor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roach. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Dennis Jones, who's the president of the National Center for Higher Education and Management Systems. Mr. Jones is on the front row there. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for being here. I would also like to recognize Carrie McInnes, who is a former THEC student member and a student member of TBR and also a graduate of Austin Peay. Is that right? Thank you very much for being here. Oh, I'm sorry, and currently on the THEC board, so we appreciate you being here also. Sadly, and he's not here, so we'll have to recognize him when he gets here. This is Robert Fisher's last commission meeting, so he may have decided to be finished with us sooner than we wanted him to leave. So we'll let Robert comment when he gets back and gets here. The next item we have, it's something new for THEC, but we have a consent agenda, and we covered these items in depth at our work session yesterday afternoon, and were briefed very thoroughly by staff, but I wanted to give any member of the commission has the opportunity to pull any item that you so desire off that consent agenda if you would like to consider that item alone. So at this point in time, I would invite any commission member who wants to pull any item off the consent agenda to say so now. We'll be happy to do so. If not, I would like to ask the commission to entertain a motion to approve adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes from the January meeting were distributed to you prior to our meeting this afternoon, and at this time I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is my report, and it's very brief. I just wanted to, and we'll talk about this a little bit at the end of the meeting, but we are experimenting with a new format with THEC, and I don't want anyone to think that it's a permanent change. It really is a sincere effort to try to maybe change some of the meeting format and see if it develops into something that's productive for commission members and also for staff and for our guests. So we had about a 3-hour workshop, Russ, yesterday afternoon. I think it went really well. I want to thank staff publicly for the hard work and the presentations that you made to the commission. Hopefully everyone found it beneficial. I know I certainly did. And then we're here today for the regular meeting. Typically, for those of you who are new to the commission or not familiar with our format, we would try to do that in one entire day. So whether we decide to keep this current format or whether we decide to go back to the way we've been doing it, that's up for debate in the will of the commission. So we'll touch on that a little bit towards the end of the meeting. At this point in time, I'd like to call on David Wright to give us a recap of the master plan discussion from the work session. David?
Chairman and Dr. Deaton, members of the commission. Really, all I'm going to do is introduce Dennis Jones. Dennis is with us from Boulder, Colorado, where, as was said earlier, he's the president of NCHIMS, the National Center for Higher Ed Management Systems. We have retained NCHIMS to provide technical support in the development of our master plan for the 2015-2025 cycle, and Dennis was in on our conversations yesterday. As a staff, we've done a lot of background work over the last 6 to 8 months. We've had a couple of online webinars with our members, and yesterday we had our first face-to-face meeting, and I think we're sort of into a deeper level of engagement, not only with the committee, but you, the commission members, as well. And Dennis was part of those conversations, so I've asked him to sort of sum up from not only where he'd like to see us go, but his impressions of the discussion yesterday. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, David. As David said, yesterday was the first face-to-face meeting of the Planning Committee. I think there was real progress made. It was easily and quickly agreed that D55 would be the centerpiece of the master plan, but it was also some conversation that said that can't be the only piece, it can't be the only goal in the master plan. There would have to be at least consideration of some other kinds of goals. For example, some things dealing with innovation, with economic development, with technology transfer, some of those kinds of initiatives that tied, for example, to some of the work being done in the Department of Economic and Community Development, so that there would be more connection between higher education and the kinds of goals being set by that agency, so that supply demand kind of get synced up in important ways. There were discussions about the contents of the master plan, and the steps necessary to create a pathway to achieve the goal that's been identified, including the specification of sub-goals within D55, questions about how much emphasis on baccalaureate versus sub-baccalaureate, for example. Some issues about closing attainment gaps regionally by economics, status of individuals, by race, ethnicity, for example. Also, the follow-on question that once goals and sub-goals got established, what additional capacities would have to be created in institutions of higher education in Tennessee. So part of that is programmatic, new programs or expanded programs. Part of that is potentially expansion of existing institutions. So it's not just new programs, but in some ways more capacity at certain institutions. New delivery models, questions about competency-based online. How reliant is goal attainment going to be on alternative delivery models? Questions about how much reliance can be expected from the not-for-profit and for-profit private institutions in the state, how much of the goal will not be the responsibility of public institutions. And then finally, the questions at the end of the day, what's the strategy that lets you pay for all of this? How do you keep it affordable to both students and taxpayers? And what's the path that kind of squares that circle? So those were the kind of main points of conversation. That conversation carried over yesterday afternoon into discussions with the commission itself. And I think now that David has done conversations with each of the planning committee members, we've had these day of conversation yesterday. We're getting to the point, or you're getting to the point, where there's an outline of what the master plan would look like. And David has put in place and is putting in place a process to have in-depth discussions about each one of the pieces of that plan. So I think that the path forward between now and July is getting fairly well developed and articulated. So that's what I've got to say. David, if you want to add anything, or if any commission member has questions, I'll be glad to.
Questions?
I can comment. First, I want to thank Dennis and David, especially for their leadership in this endeavor. This is a 5-year activity we engage in. It's very important for the state and for THEC. The substance of which will come back before the commission at the July 23rd meeting, along with both the performance funding iteration for the next cycle, as well as the new funding formula for the next cycle. All of that is being worked on now, coming before you again in July. So again, let me thank Dennis and David for their leadership.
Robert, we want to recognize and thank you for your contribution. I know you have a mouthful of food, but we want to obviously recognize that this is your last meeting, and thank you so much for your service to the commission, to the state of Tennessee. You make all of us proud. You're a super accomplished person. I'd like to give you an opportunity just to say a few words as this is your last meeting.
My apologies for being late. Not used to Nashville traffic. But no, it's been a wonderful opportunity to serve. It seems like 2 years has come and gone, much like 4 years in undergrad has come and gone like that. But I've learned just a tremendous amount serving on the commission. I think I've come to value the work that THEC does so much more by the nature of just being in this space. But beyond that, I think just we're at an incredible time in higher education in Tennessee and across the country, really. And Tennessee's leading the charge. And so I've been blessed and privileged to be a part of that conversation. And I've been blessed and privileged to be allowed to speak up and not be told to be quiet. And so, this experience has just really helped me, in fact, in my own personal endeavors, and to be able to speak intelligently about higher education policy and interviews for different scholarships has just been a tremendous opportunity. And so I'm so incredibly thankful. And to the members of the commission and folks who I've seen here very frequently, thank you for allowing me to share this space with you, and I look forward to what you all will do, and I plan to stay engaged and continue to be an active citizen in the state of Tennessee. So thank you very much.
We're grateful for that. Dr. Deaton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and I too want to acknowledge Robert and the contributions he's made. I appreciate your time on here, and it's been a pleasure working with you these last 2 years, and look forward to future endeavors with you as well. Also want to comment on the work session, Mr. Chairman. I do as well think it went exceptionally well yesterday. We had more leisurely conversation about a lot of the issues that we face. I hope it does serve as a model for our future meetings in some form or capacity, because those discussions are important. So I also want to thank all of the staff work that went into yesterday as well. There was a lot of background preparation and a lot of active work that's going on to make that work session possible. Also want to include in my report acknowledgement of two staff members, one on the THEC side and one on the TSAC side, who have been recently selected to be representatives to the Tennessee Government Management Institute Leadership and Development Training Opportunity for State Employees. And those two folks are Marianne Rainey, who I think is perhaps in the back. There you go, Marianne, who's the Assistant Director of Post-Secondary Completion Initiatives, works on Jessica Gibson's staff. And also Jason C., who's on the TSAC side. He is our Director of Outreach and College Access Programs. Both of those two individuals are present and future leaders of THEC and TSAC, and I commend them for their accomplishment and look forward to what they will learn at the TGMI. So they will be good representatives for us there, and I congratulate them on that opportunity. Let me also, if I can, talk about a capital task force that Governor Haslam has asked to be constituted that would really seek to address some of the long-term challenges Tennessee faces on capital projects. It's a committee that Dr. DiPietro and Chancellor Morgan both serve on as well, along with others. Dennis Jones is helping us on that. Really trying to find ways to increase the state's capacity to produce graduates in needed fields, which doesn't always mean bricks and mortar, of course. It means other things as well. And having us think through and recommending back to state government long-term strategies for how to address some weaknesses and some opportunities in that program. We've had one meeting already, another one's coming up in a couple of weeks, and the governor's asked this task force to produce recommendations back to him by late summer. And so we'll update you on our progress on that. And finally, Mr. Chairman, an item that was on the cutting room floor yesterday, which we ran out of time for, a brief update on the budget situation for higher ed. And as part of this, too, I'll ask Scott Sloan to be warming up for a legislative update as well. The governor's initial budget proposal passed intact. There were some additions to it. We're still working with budget staff at FNA to get a good handle on all the details. But in large part, though, again, the highlights have been passed by both chambers. Of note, $25.7 million for the formula units, the outcomes that were funded as part of the budget. That's a key element. Those were passed. There's also $10 million in the budget for the TSAA awards. This is the state's need-based financial aid award, which is a critical investment in our need-based aid program. When we talked yesterday about the fact that Tennessee will have to really rethink how it is to fund both students, financial aid, and institutions as we seek progress on Drive to 55. This is part of that, reaching students who have financial barriers to college. And also of note, the top 6 capital outlay priorities from the THEC recommendation last November were funded in the budget, and that is the first time in recent memory that all of our list has been funded, so that's an accomplishment as well. One final note before I ask Scott to come talk about legislative issues. But as part of the budget process, there is a slice of capital projects referred to as disclosed projects. These are not state-funded projects, but projects instead funded by school bond authority, plant funds, institutional operations, anything that's not state-funded. And these are oftentimes dorms, parking garages, etc. There are 2 opportunities to have those projects acknowledged in the budget. Once is as part of the November recommendations you passed, and we give them another opportunity to add projects to that list to get into the budget cycle on normal course. Because of the timing of this meeting and the speed with which the legislature got their business done, those projects were approved by me by interim action, and they're included in here for information. The list is just simply signaling an intent to pursue. These are not formally approved yet in any sense. They, of course, will also follow State Building Commission protocols as well, but that's an element of the budget that's also included here. If there are any questions, otherwise I'll ask Scott Sloan to briefly run through some bills from this session.
Chairman Cope, Dr. Deaton, members, good morning. As you may have read in the newspaper this morning, the General Assembly adjourned year 1 of the 109th session about 10 p.m. last night. So they're out for the session, out for the year. Some of these bills that I'm going to tell you about have actually just passed this week, and things have moved very quickly. Just a brief update. Senate Bill 976, Senate Majority Leader Mark Norris, Speaker Pro Tem Curtis Johnson. As you may recall, last year we passed the Veterans Education Transition Support Act. As imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, just a few months later, the federal government incorporated some of our language in the Veterans Access, Choice, and Accountability Act of 2014. When they pulled our language in, they did make a few minor changes, which required us to come back and revisit our statute this year. 2 primary changes on this, specifically naming dependents as eligible for the in-state tuition for service members relocating to Tennessee within, we had 24 months in our original statute. They shifted it to 36, which we had to mirror with this change. We also, so that's spouses and dependents, and changing the period of eligibility after service from 24 months from the date of discharge 236 to mirror the new federal statute. It also calls for THEC, UT, and TBR to review our PLA prior learning assessment models and report back, and the systems and THEC do a lot of good work on that. State Authorization Reciprocity Act, Senate Bill 299, known as SARA. This impacts UT, TBR, and the TACUA institutions by allowing where they have programs for online education and students out of state. Up to now, they would have to seek individual authorization, pay the fees for any state where they have students enrolled. This is, I think we're at 20 states. Julie, is that close? About 19, 20 states right now. We'll be working through the SREB. This statute authorizes THEC as the portal agency and allows Tennessee domiciled institutions to attain an authorization from THEC, Tennessee, to be used and acknowledged by other states. So that's one authorization. It removes quite a bit of bureaucracy for those institutions. House Bill 670, Foreign Student Reporting, Senator Bill Ketron and Representative Judd Matheny brought this. This will require institutions to report to the Department of Safety the number of non-immigrant foreign students that are enrolled at the beginning and end of courses of study. This is not a heavy lift for the campuses, as they had already been providing this information to the feds. But now, because the Department of Safety and state-level agencies were unable to get that information from the feds, this bill will enable us to collect it in the state of Tennessee. THEC's role is to work with safety in developing the forms necessary to transmit that information. Senate Bill 237, the Higher Education Technical Institutions Publications Committee sunset, which is actually now a termination of that entity. The only person at THEC who knew anything about this issue from 1976 was Dr. Richard Rhoda, and he remembered it with great detail. Back in the mid-70s, there was a concern, Chancellor Morgan shaking his head, he may remember as well. There was a great concern about the number of printed publications that were being mailed out, sort of too much marketing, maybe, was the perception. That's what Dr. Rhoda recollected. So this committee was formed in 1976 to, quote, control the cost and proliferation of those reports. Well, as technology has advanced, and 1976 was a long time ago, we don't print as much as we used to print. And UT, THEC, and TBR recommended termination of this entity, and the Government Operations Committee agreed, and this passed.
Scott, one point about that legislation.
Yeah.
Bragg was the
Senate Bill 333, University of Memphis out-of-state tuition bill. This amends a statute that Austin Peay is named in now that allows border counties, those students who would be coming in within 30 miles of the campus, or counties adjacent to Shelby, to receive in-state tuition rates. Senate Bill 605, the Community College Reconnect Grant. This is an administration bill. This is part of the Drive to 55. The Commission has received numerous briefings on this over the last several months. 2-year pilot program, and this will enable adult Tennesseans to attend a TCAT free of tuition. Senate Bill 1018, test prep class exemption under the Post-Secondary Education Authorization Act. This exempts like bar classes, bar prep, CPA accountancy, where no credential is tendered at the end, just prep classes from THEC regulation. Senate Bill 543, barber and cosmetology schools, those who are accepting federal financial student aid funds, Title IV, will be subject to this act effective July 1st of this year. We've been working with Commerce, and DPSA staff's been great about working through this. I think they've got some meetings coming up with the Cosmetology Board next month. We will be, those institutions that receive those federal financial aid funds will be not only subject to the act, but also this regulation. And that is, as I understand it, a federal requirement for their authorization, and this was necessary. That concludes my update. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Scott? Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Deaton. The next item on our agenda is also a new item as well, and it's an opportunity to highlight and recognize some really good work that is going on our campuses across the state. And our initial recognition of excellence is from the University of Memphis, and so we're grateful to have Dr. David Rudd here from the University of Memphis to speak on his Veterans Resource Center. So, Dr. Rudd, we'd invite you to the podium, please.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the veterans space. We have made a significant commitment to veterans issues in the course of this past year. I thought it also was a good opportunity to throw in, we're doing some new branding for the university, and would share our branding effort. This actually is outside of the main administration building. This year. The mission of our Veterans Resource Center is to support a transition from military life to civilian life, and to provide the academic and support necessary to make that transition an easy one, and ultimately a successful one for our students. Over the course of the past year, we have received some recognition. We've been named a top military-friendly school. We have one of the top 25 online graduate programs for veterans, according to U.S. News and World Report. And we have very specifically targeted some of our marketing to veterans to share the message very specifically with veterans. And then, as with some of our colleagues, we have been named a Vets campus in Tennessee also. Interestingly enough, we have had remarkably good enrollment growth in the veterans area as a result of reaching out specifically to veterans. We actually were a little bit surprised by that growth, and you can see the significance of it, not just at the undergraduate level. I think maybe what surprised me the most was the growth that we have had at the graduate level. Much of that has been through the MBA program. So if you look at our online program, as a veteran myself, I can tell you that network is a small one. When you market specifically to that group, the word spreads very quickly. And this recognition has been good for the university as a whole, and certainly good for our campus. Veterans add, I think, a very nice element to campus, and certainly enrich the overall environment. In terms of the funding, we have done it with a number of different alternatives, not just in terms of our base funding, tuition, and targeted and limited student activity fees, but we have garnered some donations over the course of the last year. Just recently, we received a large donation from Sedgwick Company that provides a foundation for an endowment for some of this effort in the veteran space. And so we're excited about that, and we think we have a good long-term funding model. In terms of the resources, we've got some dedicated space. We have targeted computer labs. But most importantly, we have staff that provide support and advising for students. I would argue that to a large degree they provide academic coaching and mentorship that is critical for many of our veterans in terms of integrating on campus, being successful, and feeling welcomed on our campus. We have a number of partnerships, not just locally, but nationally. And actually in December, our chapter was named the National Chapter of the Month through the Student Veterans of America group. And it's a group that I've been very active with over the course of the last 5-6 years. And it's a group that has some wonderful visibility. This is probably tied a little bit to some of our enrollment growth in this area as well. We have some interesting local partnerships. One area that is, I think, particularly fascinating is we have a partnership with one of the local courts in working with screening veterans that may have psychological or substance abuse issues, and we provide support with our psychology doctoral students and our counseling doctoral students. So it's led to partnerships that have cut across not just our campus but also our community, and I think have been very productive. I wanted to share with you briefly that we are partnering with the National Center for Veteran Studies. This is at the University of Utah. I actually started this group in Utah, and we now have partnered officially with this entity for the University of Memphis. The exciting part of that is we just completed a significant number of research projects. We just completed a $3 million clinical trial that looks like it will lead. I've actually had a meeting next week with the Office of the Surgeon General for DOD. We are pursuing a multi-center clinical trial that would cut across all points of DOD, different service branches, and it's going to be an $18 million project. And we are very much excited about that and eager to get that launched. That will run through the University of Memphis as part of the National Center. This is just a list of the full range of programs. This group has been incredibly active. We have some very dedicated, energetic, and enthusiastic student veterans that have launched a broad range of services. They've been well received and a considerable amount of excitement around those programs. If you look at how we are actually tracking effectiveness of the center, so we are tying this to the broader outcomes effort, certainly modeling what goes on in our state. And if you look at overall visits, we have about 170 visits per month. I've actually been surprised at the large degree of activity, a lot of volume in terms of activity. We're really encouraged by the retention and graduation rate of right at around 78%. As you know, that's been a challenge for us, for students in general. This starts to mimic and look closer to the rates that we see in our honors students. So that was very encouraging. We currently have, for the Veteran Student Organization, 150 members. So out of that cluster of over 700 students, 150 have been remarkably active. And again, they have picked up and engaged in a broad range of community projects for us. It's been an exciting group. It has led to far more than we would have anticipated, and it's worked I think wonderfully around the retention graduation area. And I actually have been surprised at how quickly it has moved. It's given us some visibility, not just locally but nationally, and given us an opportunity to share more about the University of Memphis and certainly to encourage and engage more veterans. And I'll stop there, and if there are any questions, happy to respond to questions.
Questions for Dr. Rudd? Very good report.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yes,
the
sir.
chance.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir. Thank you very much. And just as a side note, we hope to make this a regular part of our agenda going forward, where we highlight good work like Dr. Rudd's on our campuses across the state. Next, we have our system reports, and I would first call on Chancellor Morgan.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief. I got a few things I want to share with you, and I'd like to start out by acknowledging that last Friday, I suppose it was, President Rudd, that the formal investiture of Dr. Rudd as president of the University of Memphis took place. It was a grand occasion. The Secretary of State Hargett was able to be there, but high energy, I guess, would be the way to describe it. Goodwill and high energy throughout the day. Well attended, standing room only. And it was great to be able to be part of that. The governor participated well, and at the end of that investiture, it was announced that there was a new endowment that had been created by an anonymous donor with an initial contribution of $100,000 in Dr. Rudd's name for the purpose of providing resources to pursue veterans' education opportunities. So it was a great day. And the Veterans Center is one of many things that Dr. Rudd has began. Is in fact showing results very quickly. So I'm glad you could be here. We also had the formal investiture, the President Austin Peay, Lisa White, who's not with us today. She was on the call earlier. That also was a very happy occasion, and the campus has embraced her, and she, without doubt, has embraced the community in Clarksville and the region, and is doing a couple of things that we did that have occurred since our last THEC meeting. around two of the primary strategic initiatives that the Board of Regents is undertaking. One of those is guided pathway. You have heard about that in various presentations over the last several years. But the idea really is to create a very discreet and walkable pathway for our students as they enter our institutions to get them on track early, and be able to know when they're off track and do something about it. So we had a convening of teams from each of our institutions, 7 members of staff. I think, as it turned out, the weather for that was a struggle, and our team from East Tennessee wasn't able to get in, and maybe also from Southwest. I mean, that was the period when we had pretty significant winter weather. But they participated as well in different ways, but really came away from that meeting with each of our institutions with a plan in place that will be executed over the next 12 to 18 months, how we're going to implement those guided pathways at our institutions. This fall, virtually every student who is enrolled in one of our institutions will be either in a specific program, an academic major, or an area of academic focus with a degree map in hand or a plan in all the different things, places, clear understanding of how they get from where they are to where they want to go. And we think that is a significant improvement over where we've been, and based on what we know in Tennessee, based on what we know from other institutions around the country, that is a game changer. That is an intervention strategy that we also had a series of convenings, 3, I think, one each in English, math, and writing. Our system-wide move to go to a co-requisite system. Historically, we have dealt with developmental and remedial education by bringing students in and sticking them in the course. Hope clearly understand about that approach is it doesn't work, so we have stopped doing that. And this fall, and I say it doesn't work in very large numbers. For some students it works, but not very many. So beginning this fall at all of our institutions, and this really is a follow-on from what our universities did back as a result of the Complete College Tennessee Act, we will no longer be offering students the opportunity to enroll courses, credit courses, and credit-bearing English courses with supplemental instruction of different types, depending on where students are and what their needs are. But we know, based on pilots that we have done at our institutions, and again across the country, there are rarely things, never, I guess, things that we really would call silver bullets in terms of higher education strategies, but this gets awful close. In terms of our success rates in our pilots, we've gone from a 12% success rate in math measured by a student successfully completed a credit-bearing course within a year. I think, Tristan, is our to something close to 65% of those students using the co-requisite model, similar numbers in composition and English. So we're quite excited about that, and those groups came together to help figure out what the best practice is in implementing that this fall across the system. So those are 2 things that we're doing that we're quite excited about and think really have potential to change, to move the needle. And those are 2 of many things that are happening across our system. One other thing I'll mention to you, or 2 other things. There's always another one. We're engaged in searches. We've been engaged in president searches since I have been chancellor. Literally, there has been a search going on since I've been chancellor. That's over 4.5 years. I hope it's not because I'm chancellor that we have been engaged in searches. But nevertheless, we have 3 going on right now. We have 3 community colleges, Chattanooga, Motlow, and Southwest, where we are very much in the process. You may have noticed in the last few days we have a list of finalists at both Southwest and Motlow. The Motlow campus visits concluded yesterday and will be about the business of talking with various constituencies and committee members to come to a recommendation hopefully soon for Motlow. We will be campus visits next week at Southwest. We have 4, I think, very qualified, very good candidates that we will be pursuing next week at Southwest, and then the following week we anticipate similar activities at Chattanooga. In the case of Chattanooga and Southwest, for the first time, at least in recent memory, we used a search firm to help us generate pools for those searches, and got a very good national exposure for both of those institutions, and ended up with incredible pools, I think. But the same was also true for Motlow, where we made a choice not to use a search firm because of the relative expense of that compared to Motlow's budget. But we also got very strong pools in the Motlow search as well. So I think at the end of the day, the search committees are tasked with putting me in the most difficult position they possibly can by naming finalists that make it very hard to and I can tell you they're on track to do exactly what we ask them to do. So stay tuned. Hopefully by the time we meet next, we'll be introducing 3 new community college presidents to you. And the last thing I'd mention is just thanks to the commission staff, to David and others who have worked on this strategic planning process. We spend a lot of time at our system whining about things, wishing things were different, wishing we had more money, and wishing people would treat us better, and so forth and so on. But the work that is being done here at THEC, I think, aligns very well with the work that we're doing at our system, and I suspect the same is true at the University of Tennessee system. So we're very grateful for the work that's doing. I think we're doing the right stuff. I think we're looking at the right things. I think we're approaching it in the right way. So I thank you. I would say, just add on the 4th item that Dennis mentioned a few minutes ago about how do we pay for this. I would encourage all of us to try to broaden our reach in terms of who's at that table, trying to make sure that the governor and the governor's staff, the finance committees, and the budget staff from F&A, as well as the finance committees, are an integral part of that conversation, because we can internally talk about that all day long and come up with the best plan that could ever exist. But unless it is bought into by the ones that are going to be making those decisions in terms of resource allocation, it won't have the impact that it could. So I would just offer that as a bit of advice. So, Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Morgan. Any questions for Chancellor? All right, Dr. DiPietro.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be with you today and provide you an update on the University of Tennessee. Like lots of people, we were glad that the session closed out last night. I'll tell you that it's probably, of the 9 years I've been in Tennessee, the second best set of circumstances I've seen around funding of higher education. So that's a very good outcome. So you might be asking about the sustainability of our business model, as I've talked about previously, and are going forward with that approach. And we certainly are going to maintain the course because, as you would anticipate, that's 2 out of 9 years, and we're looking at the next 10 and trying to say how will we cope given the situation of our institutions in advancing excellence and being more entrepreneurial and effective and efficient in how we operate, and either cutting costs or increasing revenues. So we'll keep an ear to the ground on that process. We've aligned with the board, our board, from the standpoint of their support of the initiative for a 2-year time frame in trying to hold tuition at low levels and figure out other ways to solve our funding issues. And we take great personal privilege, I guess, from my standpoint in making that statement, but more importantly, it's our commitment to say it's our problem to deal with, and we'll work through it. Probably newsworthy, without a doubt, is the fact that Chancellor Rakes at UT Martin has indicated to me in the last week or 10 days that he wants to go back to the faculty in the department, to be the Department of Education, and retire from or resign from the job as Chancellor at UT Martin. We will be naming an interim person pretty quickly, probably within a week or 10 days, to lead that campus on an interim basis and be initiating a search at some time in the upcoming probably 6 months or so. It's with some envy that he does that, actually. You know, I've thought through this as Tom talked to me about his circumstances. You know, it was a lot of fun being a faculty member. I think he's really in a sweet spot right now, headed back and really happy, and that's good. And he served the institution very well, and we will certainly acknowledge him at the right junctures with the board as well as in the Martin community. We held a diversity summit recently here in Nashville. We brought together all components of our system to talk about diversity. We had outside speakers come in and talk about best practices and how to advance diversity and inclusiveness across our system. Structured a lot like we did the joint program with TBR on sexual assault. And it was a great day, and it provided a real opportunity for exchange of information and trying to always move in the right direction when it comes to inclusivity and diversity across our system. The Diversity Advisory Council, which was formed 4 or 5 years ago, was instrumental in bringing that event to completion and fruition, and the chairman, Noma Anderson, who's Dean of the College of Health Professions at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center in Memphis, and Katie High, who's our Vice President for Academic Affairs and Student Success, were key leaders of getting that organized and run. We don't know when we'll do it again. Perhaps when we do it again, John, we ought to do it jointly. We'd be open to that, without a doubt. There are lots of good news on the research front from our standpoint at the University of Tennessee. Recently, Elsevier, who's a notable scientific publisher, and the Council of State Governments has a new report out this week that shows Tennessee's research impact is growing. Tennessee ranked 8th among all states in growth in publications. Energy research is providing Tennessee's biggest advantage, and Tennessee's research in energy is cited 42% more than the U.S. average in that report. I feel that we have a lot to do with that from the standpoint of our relationship with Oak Ridge National Lab. Co-managing a lab is really an advantage, and the efforts of several components of our system, but particularly Knoxville, in working with the lab have been key to that effort. Medicine, physics, and health professions are high points above the U.S. average as well in that report. And I want to note at this point regarding research that we're in the final year of the historic 10-score program, which we led, which many of you may recall was a huge collaborative effort across public and private universities in the state to win an NSF Research Infrastructure Award through the EPSCOR program. And what this thing does is it says that we weren't competitive at the time from the standpoint of the numbers of dollars we secured for the National Science Foundation, and this gave us the kind of funds and a collaborative effort across both systems and some of the privates too in the state to advance our institutions collectively so we'd be more successful in securing National Science Foundation funding. The good news is we were successful. The bad news is we won't receive the EPSCOR grant any longer because we're now more competitive, and that's where we wanted to be. The last 10-score conference will be held June 18th and 19th here in Nashville, and we'll have more details out on that. Along the same avenue of tech transfer, you know, we believe at the University of Tennessee that if we're doing discovery or research activities, they should provide solutions to real-world problems. And there have been a couple breakthroughs on the tech transfer side that have happened just recently. The Research Foundation has indicated in the last couple days that there's a company now in Memphis, the Reist Medical Drug Delivery Company, has founded an effort or a business from the standpoint of receiving additional investment as a startup And they basically have a special mesh used in treatment of hernias that provides an antimicrobial mechanism at implant that keeps people from getting infections. And our people have come up with that discovery. We think it has great promise and likely will make lives better for people, as well as be another company that hires Tennesseans eventually as it gets off the ground and starts to manufacture that material. Just today, GTX, a Memphis-based biopharmaceutical company, is announcing a licensing agreement about a technology around a new prostate cancer treatment for what they call castration-resistant prostate cancer, which is a real problem, obviously, in men. And they have an androgen receptor. I'm probably getting way down in the weeds here with my background, that allows a drug to fix that problem, basically. We have a new development vice president coming on board in about 15 or 16 days. His name is Ricky McCurry. He's the new VP for Development, Alumni Affairs, and Programs. And he's also will be president of and CEO of our UT Foundation. He returns to Tennessee. He had been at UT Knoxville at one point in his career for several years. And most recently, he was at Rose Holman Institute in Terre Haute, Indiana. Fundraising is really important to us, obviously. We have a really good year going this year. We look for even better next year with Ricky on board in the permanent position. Many of you know Lofton Stewart. He has served the institution for a long time, 35 years. He has served the last year an interim role of leading the foundation, and I'm happy to tell you that we haven't missed a step with Lofton in leadership. We're ahead of last year right now. Currently, we have about 3 months to go. We're well over $200 million last year. Our cumulative at the finish was around $180 million, so we're already ahead of last year. So Ricky's got big shoes to fill. We think we'll probably go 2.25, 230 this year. It'll be a new record. But remember, when I say that, I remember this from a interaction with a policymaker once when I was talking about our budget and our inability to deal with the fact that we struggle with getting adequate state appropriations, and we've had tough times in the last handful of years. And they hear these big numbers, 200 million, and think you have more money than God, that you got a bucket under your desk, Joe, and you can just hand it out. The reality is 98% of these funds come in earmarked for specific items at donors' intentions or requests. And so it's very helpful, but it doesn't fix all of the problems. But we'll keep charging forward. A few kudos go out regarding recent rankings. U.S. News and World Report for graduate programs recently regarding Knoxville indicated nuclear engineering's fourth among all publics, fifth overall. Supply chain management in the College of Business Administration, fifth among publics and eighth overall. College of Law, 27th among publics. And our MBA program at Knoxville is 32nd among publics. And so we're doing well in many cases in those rankings. At UT Chattanooga, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we've dedicated the new library there. It's a 20-year anniversary of the Challenger Center there, and Chancellor Angle is doing a wonderful job interacting and connecting with the community, without a doubt. And I think I was very happy that Chancellor Morgan included a person on the search committee at Chattanooga State from University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, because that should be ultimately a great partnership. Commencements are coming up. It's always lots of fun. Most people can't understand how I like going to 5 or 6 or 7 commencements a year, but it's really the culmination of what we do as an enterprise on the educational front is when we hand people degrees, diplomas, and shake their hands. And they're really great celebrations. And they're at the undergraduate level, I've been in 3 states in this kind of a role. I can tell you the celebrations are more notable in Tennessee around undergraduate matriculation than any place I've been. And I think a lot of it is in this state we have a lot more families where this is a real benchmark from the standpoint of a first-time to college student than in a lot of the other places I've lived. I want to applaud President Rudd's efforts around veterans. They really need our help. We try to be veteran-friendly, too. I take my hat off to you. That's a program that we should try to emulate well done on the part of University of Memphis and Tennessee Board of Regents. We have lots of challenges ahead of us, but they're lots of fun. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, Mr. Chairman, or members of the commission, and thank you for indulging me.
Questions for Dr. for your report. Next item on our agenda is the action items, and all of these items would fall under our consent agenda, which was adopted earlier in the meeting. So at this point in time, I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda. Have a second.
Second.
All in favor, please. Items are adopted and approved. Next, we have call on Mr. Scott Sloan to address the commission regarding conflicts of interest.
Chairman Cope, for members of the commission who've been on for a while, this is an annual form that is submitted for new members. The form that we'll need is contained in your booklet, so just please provide that to us at your convenience, and that duty will be fulfilled. Thank you. Thank you.
Call on Dr. Deaton now to discuss the summer quarterly meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a note on that, July 23rd is the date, and I anticipate we'll have some discussions around the format for how we'll proceed in that manner. And again, that's the meeting where the final master plan, performance funding program, and the new funding formula will come before you for action. So that's that date. And if I could, while I have the floor, Mr. Chairman, the Love Awards will commence at 11 o'clock today for community involvement, recognition of 5 students and 5 faculty and staff across public and private higher education. So I encourage you to hang around for those beginning at 11 o'clock here in the boardroom.
Thank you very much. We are at the end of the formal agenda, so at this point, and I recognize that some of you may want time to reflect on the change in meeting times and that sort of thing, so don't feel like you're foreclosed from ever commenting on this item in the event you don't have a comment right now, but I welcome feedback with regard to the way we have tried this meeting experiment. I know I talked to Dr. DiPietro in the elevator on the way up, and he's got some thoughts. I don't know if you want to share those publicly or
I'd be happy to. I mean, first thing I would ask Dr. Deaton and the staff would be, is it more work or less work for you to do it this way?
Flip a coin for us. I know from my own perspective, and staff around me may be shaking their heads vigorously when I say this. I like
smiling,
or that too. I told them they had to. I like the leisurely pace we had yesterday. It was 3.5 hours. It was lengthy, but I did not feel rushed at all. I felt like we were able to take our time on things. We're endeavoring to get materials out faster. Friday afternoon, we got an email with some of the background from the work session. That requires us to be on our get on our horse a little bit quicker, which is good for us. So we're hopefully going to do that more. But from a staff perspective, I know I kind of like the pace we had yesterday, and have liked the format thus far.
I would agree that the pace is an improvement. I think my only concern, it's really not for me, it's for the members of the commission, is, if you look at Evan's world, this is billable hours, and we've just eaten up 2 days' worth. And these are volunteers, right? Or Mintha's or Sharon's or any of the rest of the commissioners. And so for me, I can work around the calendar, it's not a big deal, but I just wonder whether, if you want the same leisurely pace, I would think it might be good for the commission to consider whether you can put it into one day and stretch it all into a really long day as opposed to an overnight. That'd be my only comment. I like the dynamic and the interaction, the ability to digress and have conversations, which is really valuable and helpful, and I like that, but I'm just trying to be aware of their time and commitment as well.
Thank you very much. Else care to comment one way or the other about the meeting format? And again, take some time to reflect on it. We'll certainly revisit it at the next meeting, and you may have some thoughts you want to share not in public, and so we're happy to hear those also.
Yeah, I'll just say that, not that I'll be here to reap the benefits of the structure anymore, but I think I really appreciated the opportunity to engage in discussion with the commission, and I think it reflects some offline about just the opportunity to engage in dialogue about some major thematic elements, and so to that end, I think it was really beneficial. To Dr. D's point, it might be good to try to figure out how we work around people's out to be here can be a little bit challenging schedule-wise. It's much easier for me because I don't have a job. But
We just should have been studying.
right. Yeah, we're just sitting but if nothing else, the opportunity to engage in conversation is really beneficial. So don't lose that element. However you choose to restructure.
Well, are there any other just general announcements or anything anyone wants to comment or say before we adjourn the meeting? I'll declare the